Where are you watching from tonight? Drop your location and time in the comments below. And let's dive into another gripping soul thread story that might just change how you see random connections forever. The digital clock on her nightstand glowed 2:17 a.m., casting a harsh blue light across Lila Hart's tear-stained face. Her fingers trembled as she clutched her phone, staring at the message that had just arrived. "I can be there tomorrow. We need to talk about this in person." Miles Thorne, CEO. Lila's breath caught in her throat. Her small apartment suddenly felt like it was closing in around her. The faint sound of her 6-month-old son Theo's breathing from the second-hand crib in the corner only heightened her panic. "What have I done?" she whispered, sinking to the floor with her back against the wall. This wasn't supposed to happen. Her eyes darted to the initial message she'd sent just hours earlier, a desperate plea typed with shaking hands while fighting back tears. "Hi, I'm sorry to bother you. I'm a single mom, and I'm struggling badly. I need help buying formula and diapers for my baby. Any assistance would mean the world to us." It was meant for the local charity organization, New Beginnings, that helped mothers in need. But in her exhaustion, after working a double shift at the diner and coming home to find the last can of formula nearly empty, she had misdialed. Instead of reaching the charity, her message had landed in the inbox of Miles Thorne, the billionaire tech mogul whose face graced business magazines and whose name dominated financial headlines. "He thinks I'm scamming him," Lila muttered, wiping fresh tears with the back of her hand. "Or worse, that I'm targeting him specifically." She glanced around her tiny apartment. The peeling wallpaper, the stack of unpaid bills on the kitchen counter, the empty refrigerator save for a half-empty bottle of milk and some expired yogurt. The weight of her reality pressed down on her shoulders. Her phone buzzed again. Another message. "I've looked you up, Lila Hart. I know about your situation at 412 Maple Street, Willow Creek. I'll be there at 9 a.m. tomorrow. No need to work your shift at Eddie's Diner. I've already called them." The phone slipped from Lila's fingers, clattering to the hardwood floor. How'd he find her so quickly? What did he want? Was he angry? Was he going to expose her accidental message to the world and humiliate her? "Mama?" came a tiny, sleepy voice from the crib. Lila quickly wiped her tears and moved to her son, lifting him gently into her arms. "It's okay, baby," she whispered, though nothing felt okay. "Everything's going to be fine." As she rocked Theo back to sleep, her mind raced with possibilities. Would Miles Thorne, a man worth billions, really show up at her doorstep tomorrow? Would he help them or destroy what little dignity she had left? Little did she know this middle-of-the-night mistake would change everything, not just for her and Theo, but for an empire built on technology and a man haunted by his past. Welcome to Soul Thread Stories by T, where life's unexpected moments weave the most profound connections. Today's story is about a desperate text message that went to the wrong number, and how that single mistake altered the course of 2 lives forever. If you're new here, this channel brings you emotional journeys packed with life lessons that will stay with you long after the video ends. This story of Lila and Miles will take you through heartbreak, hope, redemption, and transformation. So settle in, grab some tissues, and prepare for an emotional journey that might just make you believe in second chances again. And don't forget, tell me where you're watching from in the comments below. Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to another episode of Soul Thread Stories by T, where we uncover the hidden connections that remind us how one moment can alter our entire existence. For my regular viewers, you know the drill. For my new family members, I'm T, and I transform real and fictional narratives into immersive journeys that not only entertain, but leave you with powerful life lessons. If you're watching this and you believe that being kind-hearted is the most basic thing we as humans can be to one another, then hit that subscribe button. That's if you truly believe that. Right now, wherever you are, perhaps curled up in bed, commuting to work, or taking a well-deserved break, I want you to connect with our community. Type your location and the time you're watching in the comments below. From New York to Nairobi, Seoul to Sydney, our stories unite us across time zones and borders. Now, Let's return to Lila, counting down the hours until Miles Thorne arrives at her door. The morning sun streamed through Lila's thin curtains, illuminating dust particles dancing in the air. It was 8:47 a.m. She had barely slept, spending the night alternating between pacing, cleaning her modest apartment, and rehearsing explanations that wouldn't sound pathetic. Theo gurgled happily in his playpen, oblivious to his mother's anxiety. Lila glanced at him, his innocent smile cutting through her worry. She had changed him into his least worn onesie, one of the few without visible stains or patches. "At least one of us isn't worried," she murmured, straightening the stack of medical bills on her coffee table. Evidence of a hospital stay when Theo had developed pneumonia 3 months ago. Insurance had covered the basics, but the co-pays and medication costs had sent her spiraling into debt. Lila moved to the bathroom mirror, examining her reflection. Dark circles shadowed her amber eyes, her chestnut hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. She'd chosen her best outfit, a simple blue dress she reserved for job interviews, now slightly loose after months of choosing between proper meals and baby supplies. At precisely 9 a.m., a sleek black Bentley pulled up outside the weather department complex. Neighbors peeked through their blinds at the unusual sight. The vehicle seemed from another world compared to rusted sedans and bicycles that typically lined the street. Miles Thorne stepped out, his 6 feet 2 inches frame impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Lila's rent for 6 months. His normally confident stride hesitated as he surveyed the crumbling brick building. 20 miles away, in the penthouse suite of the gleaming Thorne Innovations headquarters, housekeeping staff were still cleaning up the aftermath of last night. Empty whiskey glasses and scattered papers covered the usually immaculate space, evidence of Miles Thorne's late-night investigation. "Sir, are you certain about this meeting?" Alicia Rogers, his executive assistant for 7 years, had asked when he called at 6 a.m. with instructions to reschedule his morning appointments. "I've never been more certain," Miles had replied, his voice carrying the clarity that had made him a formidable business leader at just 34 years old. The night before, after receiving Lila's text, Miles had initially dismissed it as another attempt to extract money from his considerable fortune. Yet something about the raw desperation in those simple words had stirred a memory he tried to bury for years. He recognized that same desperation from his childhood, before the wealth, before the empire, the memory of his mother working 3 jobs, of falling asleep hungry, of wearing the same clothes until they fell apart, before his coding genius had created the security algorithm that made him his first million at 19. After confirming Lila's identity through a security team, a single mother, no criminal record, employed at Eddie's Diner and the Night Owl Cleaning Service, nursing school dropout, medical debt following her son's hospitalization, Miles had made his decision. The doorbell's sharp ring jolted Lila from her thoughts. With trembling hands, she opened the door. Miles Thorne stood before her, taller and more imposing in person than in the magazine covers she'd frankly searched online last night. His eyes, a penetrating gray, seemed to absorb every detail of her situation in seconds. "Ms. Hart," he said, his voice surprisingly gentle. "May I come in?" Lila stepped aside wordlessly, suddenly aware of the stark contrast between his polished appearance and her humble surroundings. "Mr. Thorne, she began, but he raised a hand. "Please, call me Miles." He glanced around, taking in the worn furniture, the carefully mended curtains, the single photo frame containing a picture of Lila holding newborn Theo. His gaze softened when it landed on the baby, who studied the stranger with curious eyes. "That's Theo," Lila said, moving protectively toward her son. "Look, about that message, it was a mistake. I was trying to reach New Beginnings, the local charity. I'd never intentionally." "I know," Miles interrupted, placing a leather portfolio on her small dining table. "I've done my research." For a moment, silence hung between them. The billionaire and the struggling single mother, divided by circumstance yet connected by a misdirected text. "Why are you here?" Lila finally asked, her chin lifting slightly, pride overcoming fear. To make sure I'm not running some elaborate scam? Miles studied her face. Actually, I'm here because your message arrived exactly 7 years to the day after I lost someone who needed help and didn't get it. He opened the portfolio. And because I believe in second chances. Inside was documentation for something called the Second Chance Initiative, a newly created program with Lila Hart listed as its first recipient. I don't want your charity, Lila said, heat rising to her cheeks. Miles shook his head. This isn't charity, Ms. Hart. This is an investment. In you and your son, and in the nurse you were training to become before life intervened. Lila's mouth opened in shock. How deeply had he researched her? But why would you help a complete stranger? She whispered. Miles glanced at Theo again, something dark and unreadable flickering across his face. Because 7 years ago, my sister Clara sent a similar message asking for help, but I was too busy building my empire to read it until it was too late. Have you ever received a message that wasn't meant for you, but changed your life anyway? Share your unexpected connection stories in the comments below. And remember, sometimes what looks like a mistake might actually be the universe's most perfect plan. Lila stared at Miles, his confession about Clara hanging in the air between them. I'm sorry about your sister, she said softly, but I can't accept this. She closed the portfolio and slid it back toward him. I made a mistake texting you, and now you feel obligated. That's not fair to either of us. Miles' jaw tightened. Fair? Let me tell you about fair, Ms. Hart. Fair would have been answering my sister's call when she needed me. Fair would have been putting family before business. He stood abruptly, his imposing frame making the small apartment feel even smaller. I'm not offering this because I feel obligated. I'm offering because I recognize an opportunity for redemption when I see one. I'm not your redemption project. Lila shot back, surprising herself with her boldness. And Theo and I aren't stand-ins for your sister. Miles' eyes widened slightly and used being challenged. He studied her for a long moment, then nodded once. You're right. That was presumptuous of me. He reached for his portfolio. I apologize for intruding on your morning. As he turned to leave, Theo let out a wail from his playpen. The timing couldn't have been more perfect or more mortifying, as Lila realized it was time for his morning bottle. The bottle she didn't have formula to fill. Miles paused at the door, watching as Lila lifted her son, whispering soothing words while anxiety clouded her eyes. You're out of formula, he stated rather than asked. Lila's cheeks burned. We'll manage. Will you? Miles challenged, his tone not unkind but direct. Pride makes a poor meal for a hungry child. Their eyes locked in silent battle, his unwavering certainty against her fierce independence. Finally, Lila exhaled. One grocery order. Just the essentials. That's all I'll accept. Miles nodded, pulling out his phone. Give me your number. I'll text you a delivery confirmation. You already have my number, Lila pointed out, the absurdity of their situation hitting her. A small, unexpected laugh escaped her lips. That's how we got into this mess. For the first time, the corner of Miles' mouth quirked up. So I do. That afternoon, a delivery arrived containing not just formula but a month's worth of diapers, baby clothes, and groceries. Attached was a simple note. No strings. MT. Lila stared at the bounty on her kitchen counter, equal parts grateful and uncomfortable. After putting Theo down for his nap, she picked up her phone. Thank you, she texted Miles. But this is more than essentials. His reply came quickly. Define essentials. Lila found herself smiling despite her reservations. Not baby clothes with designer labels still attached. An oversight, he responded. My assistant handled the details. How is Theo? That simple question opened a floodgate. Over the next week, what began as terse exchanges evolved into lengthy conversations. Lila, working late nights at a cleaning service, found herself texting Miles during breaks. sharing Theo's first attempt at crawling, venting about difficult customers at the diner, admitting her fears about their uncertain future. Miles, often responding during odd hours, revealed fragments of his own life. The pressures of running a global company, his insomnia, the emptiness of his penthouse. He never mentioned Clara again, but her ghost lingered between their words. "Why do you really keep texting me?" Lila asked one night, 3 weeks after their initial meeting. "You're the only person who does want something from me," came his unexpected reply. Eddie's diner hummed with a Friday lunch crowd. Lila balanced 4 plates along her arm, delivering them to a booth of construction workers who were regular customers. "Order up for table 7. Eddie called from the kitchen. Lila wiped her brow with her forearm and moved toward the counter. She froze mid-step when she saw who occupied table 7, Miles Thorne, dressed in a casual button-down shirt and jeans, looking decidedly out of place among the vinyl booths and laminated menus. "What are you doing here?" she hissed, setting his coffee down harder than necessary, droplets sloshing onto the table. "Having lunch," Miles replied calmly, though his eyes betrayed amusement at her reaction. "I was in the neighborhood for a meeting. Your corporate headquarters is 30 minutes away." 45 in traffic, he corrected, taking a sip of coffee. He grimaced slightly. "This is strong." "Eddie believes coffee should be able to dissolve a spoon," Lila said, noticing every eye in the diner fixed on them. "People are staring." "Let them." Miles shrugged. "I'd like the special, please." Lila narrowed her eyes. "The special is meatloaf. You told me yesterday you hate meatloaf." Miles raised an eyebrow. "You remember that?" Lila felt her cheeks warm. "What do you really want, Miles?" His expression turned serious. "To ask you in person if you'll reconsider my offer, not as charity, but as an investment in your future. Full nursing school tuition, childcare for Theo, and a stipend until you graduate." "In exchange for what?" Lila asked, suspicion edging her voice. "Your commitment to finish your degree and then work with the Clara Foundation, which I'm establishing to help others in similar situations." Before Lila could respond, the diner's door chimed. Sebastian Vaughn, son of the town's most prominent family and owner of half the properties in Willow Creek, strode in, his attention immediately locking on Miles. "Miles Thorne," Sebastian called, approaching with the confidence of old money meeting new. "When my secretary said you wanted to meet about property acquisition in Willow Creek, I didn't expect to find you in—" He glanced around dismissively, "this establishment." Miles stood, shaking Sebastian's hand. "Vaughn, thank you for meeting me here. The food comes highly recommended." His eyes flicked briefly to Lila. Sebastian followed his gaze, recognition dawning. "Ah, Ms. Hart, I believe my property management company handles your building." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Still behind on last month's maintenance fees. If I recall correctly." Lila's knuckles whitened around her serving tray. "Maintenance fees for repairs that haven't been made in 3 years," she countered, keeping her voice professional despite the humiliation burning through her. "Perhaps we should discuss that as part of our business," Miles interrupted smoothly, gesturing for Sebastian to join him. "I'm interested in several properties in Willow Creek's east side for a community development project." Sebastian's eyebrows rose as he sat across from Miles. "The east side? That area is hardly worth development. Low-income housing, outdated infrastructure," he lowered his voice but not enough, "and residents without the means to improve their situations." "Those residents are precisely why I'm interested," Miles replied, his tone hardening imperceptibly. Lila retreated to the kitchen, her mind racing. East Side development? Community project? Was this connected to his offer to her? That night, Willow Creek buzzed with speculation. Miles Thorne's presence at Eddie's diner, his meeting with Sebastian Vaughn, and his apparent connection to the single-mother waitress became the town's most discussed topic. Theories ranged from secret romance to corporate espionage. As Lila put Theo to bed, her phone buzzed with text from Miles. "Vaughn is resistant to selling those properties. He suggested I find more suitable investments and companions. I find myself increasingly motivated to prove him wrong on both counts. Lila stared at the message, understanding its implications. Miles wasn't just offering her a second chance. He was challenging the entire system that had kept her struggling. The question was, could she trust him, or would accepting his help make her a pawn in some larger game between powerful men? Would you accept help from someone unexpected if it meant changing your entire future? Have you ever connected with someone who transformed your life in ways you never imagined? Share your stories in the comments below. 3 days after the diner encounter, Lila found herself standing in front of Willow Creek Memorial Hospital. Not as a patient or visitor, but as an applicant. Miles had arranged an interview for a part-time administrative position in the nursing department. The job would allow her to work alongside medical professionals while studying, providing both income and practical experience. You can still say no, Miles had texted that morning. But something had shifted in Lila since their conversation. Perhaps it was the way Sebastian Vaughn had looked at her, like she was invisible despite standing right in front of him. Or maybe it was a realization that pride wouldn't pay for Theo's future. After securing the position, Lila texted Miles a simple thank you. His response came hours later, inviting her to visit Thorne Innovations' headquarters the following day. There's something you should see before making your final decision, his message read. The gleaming glass tower of Thorne Innovations jutted into the skyline, like a monument to innovation itself. Lila, dressed in her interview outfit and carrying Theo in a second-hand baby carrier, felt painfully out of place among the sleek professionals hurrying through the lobby. Alicia Rogers, Miles' executive assistant, greeted her with surprising warmth. "He's waiting for you on the 42nd floor," she said, ushering Lila into a private elevator. "I've been instructed to tell you this isn't the executive floor." Lila's confusion must have shown on her face. "You'll understand soon," Alicia added cryptically. When the elevator doors opened, Lila stepped into what appeared to be a state-of-the-art medical facility. White corridors stretched in both directions, with nurses and doctors moving purposefully between rooms. "Welcome to the Clara wing," Miles said, appearing beside her. His usual confident demeanor seemed diminished here, replaced by a quiet solemnity. "Not many people know this exists." "What is this place?" Lila asked, adjusting Theo on her hip. "Follow me." Miles led her down the corridor to a room at the end of the hall. Through a glass window, Lila could see a young woman lying in a hospital bed, surrounded by medical equipment. Her long dark hair framed a face that resembled Miles', though hers had remained frozen in youth. "This is Clara," Miles said softly. "My sister." Lila's breath caught. "You said she died." "Clinically, she did, for 7 minutes." Miles pressed his palm against the glass. 7 years ago, Clara overdosed on prescription medication after battling depression for years. I was in Tokyo, closing our biggest acquisition. She sent me messages asking for help. I was too busy to respond. The monitor beside Clara's bed beeped steadily, marking the rhythm of a life suspended between existence and absence. By the time I saw her messages, she'd already taken the pills. The paramedics revived her, but the oxygen deprivation caused severe brain damage. The doctor said she would never wake up, recommended removing life support. Miles' voice remained even, but his knuckles whitened against the glass. I refused. "So you built her this?" Lila whispered, understanding dawning. "I built this entire wing for her and patients like her. Funded research into experimental treatments for brain injuries. Hired the best neurologists in the country." Miles turned to face Lila. "Every day for 7 years, I've come here to read to her, talk to her, play her favorite music. Every advancement in neurotechnology gets tested here first. Has there been any improvement?" Lila asked gently. Miles' silence was answer enough. "The foundation I want to establish. It's not just about money or easing my conscience. It's about prevention, about reaching people before they end up like Clara." He nodded toward Theo, who was watching the scene with curious eyes. About making sure children like your son grow up in communities where asking for help isn't seen as weakness. Lila studied Miles' face, seeing not the billionaire CEO, but a brother broken by regret. Why show me this? Why tell me about Clara? Because I need you to understand this isn't charity or a power play against Sebastian Vaughn. This is personal for me. Miles hesitated, then added, and because the foundation needs someone who understands both sides, the desperation of needing help and the clinical knowledge to provide it effectively. Your nursing background combined with your life experience makes you uniquely qualified. Lila looked again at Clara, seeing for the first time the sophisticated equipment monitoring her brain activity. One machine displayed colorful patterns that shifted subtly. That's new technology, Miles explained, following her gaze. It translates neural impulses into visual patterns. The doctors believe Clara may still have some level of consciousness, even if she can't communicate conventionally. She's listening, Lila realized. All these years, she's been listening. Miles nodded, emotion finally breaking through his composed exterior. That's what I believe, too. 3 weeks later, Lila sat in the Willow Creek Community College admissions office, completing her nursing program re-enrollment forms. Her phone buzzed with a news alert, a habit she developed since becoming associated with Miles Thorne. The headline made her stomach drop. Tech Titan's secret medical facility exposed. Miles Thorne's hidden sister and the waitress who uncovered the truth. Accompanying the article was a grainy photo of Lila entering Thorne Innovations with Theo, alongside a stock image of Miles at a business conference. The reporter speculated wildly about their connection. Painting Lila as either a gold digger or an investigative hero would expose Miles' secret experiments. Before she could finish reading, her phone rang. Sebastian Vaughn. Ms. Hart. His voice oozed false concern. I thought you should know that my sources at the Willow Creek Gazette received some very interesting information about your new benefactor. I do hope this publicity won't affect your housing situation. The threat was thinly veiled. What do you want, Mr. Vaughn? Lila asked, her voice steadier than she felt. I want Miles Thorne to understand that Willow Creek isn't for sale, to him or his charitable impulses. This town has a certain character we wish to maintain. After hanging up, Lila immediately called Miles, but reached his voicemail. Minutes later, he texted, an emergency board meeting. Story leaked by internal source. Need to talk. That evening, as news vans gathered outside her apartment building, Lila made a decision that would shock not only Miles Thorne but the entire town of Willow Creek. Do you believe that wealth creates responsibility to help others? Or should the wealthy be able to use their money however they choose? Share your thoughts in the comments below. 2 years later, Willow Creek bore little resemblance to the town where Lila had once struggled paycheck to paycheck. The east side, once neglected, now flourished with renovated buildings, green spaces, and a medical clinic where Lila worked 3 days a week as a licensed practical nurse. Her stepping stone toward becoming a registered nurse the following year. A cool autumn breeze rustled the colorful leaves as Lila watched 3-year-old Theo race across the cold playground of the Clara Foundation Preschool. His laughter mingled with the sounds of other children, many whose parents had once faced the same hardships Lila had known. Mommy, look how high. Theo called, swinging from the monkey bars, his confidence a stark contrast to the fragile infant who had once slept in a second-hand crib. I see you, buddy. Be careful. Lila called back, making notes on her clipboard. As program director for the Foundation's Family Support Initiative, she was reviewing applications for the next round of educational scholarships. Her phone buzzed with a message from Miles. Board meeting just ended. Foundation funding approved for next 5 years. East Side Medical Residency Program launching in January. Lila smiled, remembering when their communications had been tense, uncertain exchanges. Now they texted dozens of times daily, coordinating programs, sharing ideas, and occasionally debating the merits of Eddie's Diner coffee, which Miles now claimed to enjoy despite his first horrified reaction. Sebastian Vaughn had eventually relented in his opposition, though not out of kindness. When his own mother suffered a stroke and received treatment at the Clara Wing, he'd experienced firsthand the value of the Foundation's work. While never becoming an enthusiastic supporter, he'd withdrawn his active resistance, allowing Willow Creek to transform without his interference. As the sun began to set, Lila gathered Theo and walked toward the community center for the weekly neighborhood dinner. The building hummed with activity. English classes for immigrants in one room, financial literacy workshops in another, and teenagers gathering for a coding club sponsored by Thorne Innovations. In the main hall, long tables filled with families from all corners of Willow Creek. East Side residents mingling with West Side professionals, creating connections that would have seemed impossible 2 years earlier. Miles arrived as dinner was being served, slipping in quietly and taking a seat beside an elderly man who had once been homeless before the Foundation helped him secure housing and part-time work as a community garden caretaker. No longer did Miles' presence cause a stir. He had become a familiar figure, his wealth secondary to his contributions. Later, as volunteers cleaned up and children played tag around the tables, Miles found Lila organizing the next day's schedule. Clara showed brain activity during the music therapy session today, he said, quietly, more than we've seen before. Lila squeezed his arm gently. That's wonderful. The new protocol is working. The doctors are cautiously optimistic. Miles watched Theo zooming around with his friends. None of this would exist without that wrong number, you know. Or without your decision to answer a stranger's text, Lila countered. Most people would have blocked my number. Miles smiled, the weight of his past regrets visibly lighter than when they'd first met. Clara always said there are no accidents in the universe. Just redirections we're too stubborn to see coming. Wise woman, Lila murmured. I hope I meet her someday. You already have, Miles replied. In every life changed through this work. In every family that gets a second chance. As they watched the community they'd built together, not through charity but through genuine partnership, Lila reflected on how a single misdirected text had cascaded into a movement that had reshaped an entire town. Her mistake had opened doors she'd never known existed, proving that sometimes life's wrong turns lead exactly where we need to go. The evening ended as it always did, with neighbors helping neighbors, sharing resources and stories, creating networks of support that would outlast any single program or initiative. What had begun as one desperate mother's plea for help had evolved into a community where asking for help was no longer seen as weakness, but as a first step toward collective strength. Ready to head home, buddy? Lila called to Theo. 5 more minutes, please, he begged, engaged in an elaborate game with his friends. Lila and Miles exchanged knowing glances. Time, the luxury she had never possessed when struggling alone, was now something she could afford to give freely. This is Soul Thread Stories by T, where we believe every connection, even accidental ones, has the power to transform lives. Subscribe to hear more stories that remind us how the universe works in mysterious ways, and share this with someone who needs to believe in second chances. Until next time, remember that your greatest mistake might just be the doorway to your most beautiful beginning.